At 6:01 a.m., the HOA president pounded on my door and slapped a $500 fine into my hand for a porch swing by sunset. My gate fob was dead, and a neat little sign reading Heritage Path had appeared behind my fence like a magic trick. I never asked for. That was the day I learned how fast a smile and a clipboard can turn your home into a battlefield. My name is Alex Carter. I bought a pale blue Craftsman on Dogwood Lane in Maple Ridge Estates because the brochure promised quiet nights and tidy lawns, because I am the kind of guy who actually reads the CCNRs with a highlighter, and on paper nothing looked crazy paint within a palette. Trash cans out of sight ask permission before you build a castle fine. Until the person holding the rules decided the rules were a weapon. She introduced herself with the confidence of a traffic light. Brenda Whitmore, HOA president. Yoga pants, mirrored sunglasses. Voice like a warning siren, disguised as a compliment. Good morning, Mr. Carter. You installed an unauthorized architectural projection. Remove the swing by noon. Her phone already recording for transparency. I tried to joke a porch swing threatening the structural integrity of the neighborhood. You know what I mean. But jokes need oxygen, and she was all vacuum. The fines rolled in like spam. Planter box, non-compliant flag bracket. Angle, unacceptable, visible tools. In yard, a certified letter announced total due, $750, and a friendly note that failure to cure could lead to a lien over Section 8.2 my pool. Fob blinked red, and a neighbor I had not met posted a photo of my yard in the Facebook group. Cropped so tight, it looked like I was building a spaceship, captioned, "New resident refuses to follow standards, yeah?" That happened. I tried not to take the bait. I made folders on my laptop like a man building a second spine. Letters. Photos, calls. I reread the bylaws and saw the part where they have to cite specific sections and give you a hearing. Before fines, mine were fortune cookies pretending to be law. So I wrote a calm email requesting a due process hearing. And then I called a real estate attorney, because when your enemy loves paperwork, you need better paperwork. "This is Rebecca Hayes," she said, steady like she was used to other people's fires. "Document everything. Request the hearing in writing. Do not remove lawful items. Install cameras today." That night, I mounted motion cams over the porch and along the back fence. I painted the casings to match the trim, because paranoia is just preparation. You haven't proved yet I hired a surveyor named Caleb, who walked my rear line with a tripod. Like he was arguing with gravity, he found the original iron pin exactly where the county plat said, and fresh shovel bites around the new heritage stake, like someone had drawn a boundary with wishful thinking. He shrugged, not the first time. 8 days later, my phone buzzed at 2:13 a.m. I opened the live feed and watched a white crossover idle by the easement. 2 figures slipped through my yard with flashlights. Brenda and her board buddy Greg, the one who wears a whistle like he runs the pool and the world. And I watched him lever the orange stake loose while saying, "Shift it to the stake line." "He won't know," and Brenda answered, "Everyone knows the trail runs there. They hammered the HOA post into soft ground like a judge stamping evidence, and left." I sat on the edge of my bed, heart punching the dark, and backed up the clip to a drive labeled insurance, because sometimes your courage needs a second copy. I did something else that felt small but mattered. I drove to City Code and met an officer named Jamal Brooks, who did a courtesy inspection and wrote a memo porch swing, not a city code. Issue planter. Boxes, not a city code. Issue mulch. Color, not a city code. issue, he told me the HOA had no business invoking his office to scare people. I thanked him like a man who finally found a chair in a crowded room. Then my neighbor Mrs. Diaz knocked with a folder and the smile of someone who has been waiting years for the right moment. She has been pushing this Heritage Path thing forever, she said, and handed me last year's newsletter, bragging about expansion pending survey, which never happened, plus a stack of election proxies, half filled in with what looked like the same pen. You didn't hear this from me, mijo, but I don't like bullies. When the certified letter arrived announcing my hearing Friday at 7 p.m. in the clubhouse, it forgot to mention I had 15 minutes by right and could bring counsel. But Rebecca knew she walked in beside me in a navy suit that looked like it never lost an argument. The room was standing room only because nothing draws a crowd. Like neighbor versus neighbor with a gavel, Brenda tapped the mic and said, "Mr. Carter, 3 minutes." And I said, "Per by law, 5.3, it's 15, and I intend to use them." The treasurer cleared his throat and nodded 15. It is, and for the first time, Brenda's mouth tightened like a knot. I started boring on purpose because boring wins notice language up on the screen with yellow highlights. No specific section. Citations in any of my letters. Jamal's memo stating no municipal violations. Caleb's survey overlay on the county plat with a red line showing my fence was inside my parcel and the disturbed soil where the heritage post shouldn't be. You could feel the room lean in when the map slid over the video still. Now the part I didn't want to play. I said roll it, and the lights dipped. And there they were on my fence cam at 2:13 a.m. Greg prying Brenda, declaring what everyone knows, the audio painfully clear. Nobody coughed. Even the cheap clock on the back wall seemed to stop. And when the lights came up, Brenda's lawyer whispered in her ear. But she tried to take the wheel back anyway. That pin was in the wrong place. Everyone knows the trail runs there, and I heard my voice come out calm. In a way it hadn't been in weeks. Then you should have hired a licensed surveyor instead of showing up with a flashlight, you know. Jamal raised his hand in the back like a teacher and said, "For the record, the city issued no citations and gave no orders." My memo states that Rebecca stepped to the mic and listed next steps. Like a grocery list. Criminal complaint for interference with survey monuments. Declaratory relief on the boundary. Injunction on unlawful fines. And a simple ask for. Tonight, rescind everything and state amenities. Remove the signs from private property. Refer the tampering to the sheriff and schedule a special election so the community can decide what kind of leadership it wants. Brenda tried to gavel the motion away, but the treasurer didn't flinch. "I move to adopt council's asks," he said. Board member. 2 said second. Brenda snapped. "This is out of order." And the treasurer said, "You are out of order." Vote, the tally went 4-1. Like a door opening. Nobody clapped people. Just exhaled, like they had been holding their breath since spring security approached the dais when Brenda refused to relinquish the chair. And when he touched her elbow, she gathered her papers with fingers that trembled and stepped down past the projector, where the paused frame still showed her in my yard. That was the moment I realized how quickly a performance can turn into a confession. My gate fob blinked green the next morning, and that dumb little beep sounded like a choir. You'd think I ran a victory lap. But the truth is, you live with the hangover, half the cul-de-sac. Avoided my eyes, and the other half brought pie. I stayed off the Facebook group and planted tomatoes, because you cannot eat vindication. But you can eat a tomato sandwich in August. Rebecca handled filings. The sheriff handled evidence. Jamal went back to work, reminding people that city code is not the HOA's costume. Mrs. Diaz left caldo on my porch and said, "Sleep is how we rebuild." And I slept not like a hero, like a man who finally stopped listening for footsteps at 2 a.m. A month later, the board held the special election I went to vote, and not to run. People signed their own names, and the treasurer became president. He shook my hand and said, "We will audit our practices if you ever want a seat on architectural. We need someone who can read a map," I said. "Maybe next year." I walked home at dusk under porch lights and sprinklers, and thought about how thin the line is between standards and control, and how badly some folks want to be guardians, because guardians get to forget. They are also neighbors. If you want the clean ending here, it is. The gavel fell. The votes were counted. The fines vanished. The heritage signs came out of my grass. The clip went to law enforcement. The room shifted back to normal gravity, and the night air smelled like cut cedar. Again cut there. End scene, consequence delivered. But the part that sticks to me is the question that won't stop itching. Where should a community draw the line between keeping things nice and keeping people small? How many violations make a neighborhood safe, and how many just make it scared? If I hung a porch swing without asking, am I defiant or just a grown man using a beam on his own porch? If you lived on Dogwood Lane, would you have voted like the 4? Or like the 1? You know what I mean. Tell me in the comments where you draw that line. Tell me if I was right to fight in public, or if you think I owed them a quieter conversation. And if you have ever had a rule used like a weapon against you. I want to hear that story. Hit subscribe. If you believe due process should apply to HOAs the same as courts, and share this with the neighbor who needs to know a calm voice, a camera, and a map can still beat a gavel.